We are back with another episode of Art and Our Entertainment, and my allergies are kicking my ass. But I'm going to talk about Scorched, the Scorched. You know, there's so much going on right now with this story, and I'm 5 issues in. You got Spawn, who's the leader of it. Uh, there's so many different stories that are converging at the same time, not only just in these comics, but in other comics as well. You got the Scorched, you got King Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn, and all these are happening at the same time, and it's pretty cool because uh, Spawn Al Simmons is the leader of the group, and he's trying to stop himself from becoming, the king of hell because he knows once that happens, all hell is gonna break loose, literally and figuratively. It's very symbolic in a way, because the keys that open doors in this story aren't necessarily the keys. It's him sitting on the throne and him accepting the power of hell. And once that happens, who get out the way because all will be lost. So Al Simmons, he obviously gets his powers from hell like all the spawns do, but he's using them for good. He's using them to reshape. Um, to reshape, life as he sees fit, um, as well as the rest of them. So they're doing it for good, and there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of uh, characters that are conflicted. For example, Gunslinger Spawn. He's trying to get back home to the 1800s, the late 1800s, to be with his family, and he's trying to get there by any means necessary. And he's not necessarily aligned with all the spawns trying to do what they do. He's just trying to find a way to get back home. And Billy Kincaid, the clown, is definitely gave him a proposition a while back. He was like, hey, if you backstab Spawn, I can get you to where you need to be. You know what I'm saying? If you want to go into the past, I can make that happen for you, but you have to be on my side. So, this, and he's a part of the Scorch team. So it's not like they're not like the Three Musketeers where they're all for one and one for all. It's not that. Each of them has their own motives. Some of them are more level headed than others. And, they just have their own goals and they're all trying to justify their means. And I like that they all have different ambitions and they have different destinations that they're trying to reach, different end games. They're not like the Avengers. They're not all fighting one. I mean, now, of course, they do come together to fight one main threat. You know what I mean? Like, for example, this, there's this one large monster that, fights them all, that they're all tasked with fighting. And I think it's pretty dope when they all come together and fight this beast that is basically like a spawn killer slash anti-spawn killer, in which in an anti-spawn is basically an angel. But he's, they say he's called the Sin Devourer. The Sin Devourer. Let me show you this guy one more time. He's like, that's all of him right there. So, you got Al Simmons, you got Gunslinger Spawn, She Spawn right there under some debris, and then you got, I forgot what this guy's name is, but he's like an angel. And then you have Medieval Spawn. He's in the fight too. I like Medieval Spawn. I need to get some stuff on him. I know he's got his own literature out. I need to check that out. But like I said, man, they're all different spawns fighting against, this Sin Devourer. Basically just another enemy that's trying to stop this team from doing what, they're trying to do. Which is basically, stop the big threats that can destroy the world. They're all trying to stop the dead zones from opening, whether they like it or not, because once the dead zones are open, then it's all hell breaks loose. And a lot of bad people are really banking on the fact that, no, they're really hoping that Al Simmons, gives in to the evil and he becomes King Spawn. That way, once he does that, all the dead zones be reopened and all the monsters can come out and basically rip our world apart. And Al Simmons is trying to do everything to prevent that from happening. So he's leading this group of spawns begrudgingly, and they don't, they're hard to drag along as well. But that's the beauty of this story because there's so many different characters, and you see it with their own offshoots. Like I said, with Gunslinger Spawn, um, the Scorched. You see they have their own stories, and they're all trying to just figure out how to, reach their end game. And Al Simmons is the strongest of them, and so they have to follow him. And they're like, "Oh, we don't want to do this shit." But for the most part, they all see that there's a bigger threat, and the threat is the dead zones being opened, and once they're open, then it's basically bye our world. And so there's some more. This Sin Devourer is just kicking everyone's ass, dude. And the Sin Devourer was created by um, shadowy figures, man. I mean, because as I'm starting to read more and more about Spawn, I'm learning little bits here and there. Like I'm still like dealing with the first couple issues of that compendium of Spawn. But one thing I've realized is that there are powerful figures there are powerful humans that are aware that there's this battle between heaven and hell, angels and demons. And not every human knows, but there are some humans that have a lot of power that realize, no, this is actually going on. And some of them are for good, some of them are for bad. Um, but, for example, this Sin Devourer, and look at this. They're like figuring out a way to defeat him now. They're trying to take basically these vials off his shoulder that give him power. So it's pretty damn cool. She Spawn is amazing. She's had some cool cover art variants, like this one. Boom. Look at that shit. That shit's incredible. But I'm not really even going too much in depth with this because it's just so much, and this is already issue 5. I have so much Spawn stuff, it's ridiculous. But Sergey. Sergey is a pretty cool character himself, man. He's called the Soul Crusher. And that's Sergey right there. He's been beat to shit, and that's Natasha. Both of them have been infected. Natasha and Sergey have both been infected with the symbiote DNA of Spawn's skin, basically. The shit that covers him. It's basically like its own living organism, and they've been infected with it. These allergies are kicking my ass. But yeah, they're in the fight too, man. And the thing that's really cool about Sergey is that he's not the first Soul Crusher. There was a Soul Crusher that trained him and Natasha. And he was a scientist, and that's actually in here too. Where's the scientist at? Because they go into great detail about how this guy that was the Soul Crusher before made a point to really study the spawns once they came on the scene, and he did it for decades, and he was always trying to figure out ways to destroy them because he figured that the spawns weren't there to help. I wanted to give you guys a little more backstory on the old Soul Crusher. So it says here in issue 3 of Scorched. Look at that. That's some fantastic artwork, by the way. The old Soul Crusher, he works in he runs his lab out of this big nice mansion in Ukraine. And it says for years he has tinkered here, developed weapons able to destroy the otherworldly beings on our planet, which is the spawns. And so and as of late he's begun drafting young, abandoned, and vulnerable teenage kids into his fight. And I think Sergey and Natasha they also used to be young teens that he probably grabbed and was like, hey, there's a war between heaven and hell, you guys need to be prepared for it, blah 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 blah. And then Sergey goes on to say, hey man, we had a mission before and you got someone killed, you know what I'm saying, you got he said you got Odessa killed. And they were Sergey's basically telling the old Soul Crusher, he's like, dude, your plan doesn't work. You want us to just fight these spawns and be gung ho about it, but we're losing people that we're training, and that's not what this is about. You're getting people killed because you're not adapting to what's going on in this war between heaven and hell. And so it's it's not said really, but it's kind of implied that Sergei's like, look, maybe we need to work with these spawns because they don't seem to be the bad guys. And basically the old Soul Crusher was like, you're a fool, you're a traitor, you're trying to make a deal with them, slaps him, and then Sergei puts him against the wall, and he's like, he said, and then Sergey is like, he has him pinned against the wall, and the old man is like, fighting these monsters is my life's work. You come back empty handed, no plague, no vial, nothing. So they're just going back and forth, and Sergey's like, touch me again and I'll break your hand, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking after that it was gonna be like, okay, Sergey just walks out with Natasha, and they're just like, forget you, old man, blah 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 blah. But he goes on further. He's like, you killed Odessa, and now Natasha has the plague quills. So basically, the plague quills are what these things are on plague spawn, and Natasha's been infected with his quills. So being infected with his quills is basically like a death sentence. Shit, rightfully so. Look at this motherfucker. Do you want to be stabbed with anything that he got going on in his body? You know what I'm saying? So they go back and forth. Goes back and forth with this dude. I mean, look, like I said, he has him pinned up, and he's basically lecturing the old Bone Crusher, and he's like, don't you get it? We're on the run because you're losing touch of how powerful the enemy has become, old man. And he said, Spawn hasn't stood idly by doing nothing. He's recruiting, building an army, doing the things you used to. I figured this would be better. Hopefully I don't get sued. He said, so every night you told us, you trained us how to prepare against the forces of good and evil. Well, they're here. And all those monsters you talked about, they mobilized. You said you'd free us from their influence. That was your goal. So, like I said, actually, he's been training Natasha and Sergey before they were teenagers, and that's him putting, the plague virus inside Sergey. And so, anyways, he says, that's still our goal. It's why we let you experiment on us, because we still want an earth free of angels and demons. So while I was reading this, I mean, it escalates even further, and I just want to show you guys this because I'd showed you this already. I'm spoiling it already, so might as well make it more entertaining. So here we go. Pretty quickly here, you guys. The old Soul Crusher is smashed into into this dresser by Sergey. He says, I know what I must now do. And the old man, the old man speech. You don't have the will to do what needs to be done. And then I'm like, oh shit, he's about to really do this to this dude? And he's like, you're wrong. I learned from the best. And Natasha's like, Sergey. And yeah, he's got alcohol on him. And yeah, it gets crazy. And so Sergey ended up killing that guy who trained him and Natasha to, basically be spawn killers. Also, the old Soul Crusher is friends with this dude named Khrushchev, who's a military commander. More specific, he's a general, General Khrushchev. He wants to have, the spawn DNA so he can, so basically he can armor all of his soldiers to have that, that spawn coding, basically that symbiote protection, and they would go into war and be virtually indestructible. So General Khrushchev and the older Soul Crusher, they're joining forces, and they're all trying to find a means to an end as far as like what they're trying to do, and they're both using the spawn DNA in different ways, and so anyways, this shadowy figure makes a deal and funds the OG Soul Crushers, his tests, and as a pro, the shadowy figure gets to test his latest drugs. And so, but this shadowy figure is different though, because he doesn't want to make a suit. He's not getting the prototype drug because he wants to make a new symbiote spawn or he wants to make soldiers stronger. He's trying to figure out a way to manipulate this, this new drug so he can create monsters that can kill spawns and angels and anyone else he sees fit not, not to live. So it is pretty cool, and I think I got everything out that I wanted to say because I was really struggling trying to get that shit out. I had to take a couple times to do that. But Yeah, man, there's so many moving pieces. There's scientists doing this, there's generals doing this, there's shadowy figures that we don't know that are part of this, and so we're slowly figuring out who's really behind this, who's really doing the puppeteering. Um, yeah, man, it is crazy, dude. Um, yeah, and then we find out different characters at the end. There was a character that has been revealed to us that I think he's a spawn himself. I really don't know what spawn this is, but I'll just say spoiler alert. I'll show you who this guy is. Maybe you guys will know. Yeah, this guy looks crazy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't even know who that is. You know what I'm saying? I have no idea who that is. He looks fantastic. I was trying to figure out who the hell he was in this other comic that I have. That is oh, let me show you guys before before I show you that what I'm talking about. That's Sergey right there, aka Soul Crusher, when he's not on the floor all banged up. He's killing monsters. So that's him right there. But back to that guy I just showed you guys in that last picture of that Scorched comic. He's right here. And I didn't know who the hell this guy was. You know what I'm saying? I'm still trying to figure out who the hell this guy is. For the most part, I know who everyone is except for him and him. But he's like an angel. He's like an angel, and we don't know who he is. I think the only person that knows who he is Al Simmons. And so that's She Spawn. That's obviously Al Simmons, OG Spawn, Gunslinger, who's turning out to be one of my favorites. Medieval Spawn. He's dope too, man. They need to make a. He needs his own comic, man. I know they got some comic of him that was made a couple years back, but he needs his own run because he seems to be the one who always steps in at the nick of time and kicks some ass, some much needed ass to be kicked. And you know what I'm trying to say. He's like the Hulk of this team right here. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think I got everything out that I was trying to say. But kind of kind of kind of staggering my way through that video, man, because there's just so much with this Scorch and so much Spawn that I'm reading. I really don't know where to begin and where to start with the story, but I mean, essentially, they're all trying to stop the dead zones from being reopened. Because, like I said before, once the dead zones are reopened, it's the floodgates. The floodgates open, and what comes out is everything bad, everything that can't be controlled, and everything that wants to destroy everything. So, um, yeah, man, Scorch is pretty cool. The Scorch is pretty cool. I look forward to reading the rest of that, seeing where everyone ends off because um, everyone's trying to get home. Everyone's trying to get home in that story. Everyone has different motives, and they're not just one big team that spends a lot of time together and lives and eats together like the Avengers. They all have their own motivations, and they're only sticking together so they can achieve those motivations. So, with that said, it's another episode of Art Not Entertainment. You guys have a good one. Peace.